The key to safety deposit box 247 felt impossibly small in my trembling hands as I stood outside Grandma Eleanor's lawyer's office. Through the window, I could see my Aunt Patricia celebrating with the rest of the family, champagne glasses raised high, their laughter echoing off the walls like daggers to my heart. "Orphans don't inherit anything, sweetie," Patricia had sneered just 20 minutes ago, waving the forged sale documents in my face. "Real family comes first." The whole room had erupted in applause. My cousins Marcus and Jennifer had actually stood up, clapping like Patricia had just delivered the punchline to the world's cruelest joke. Uncle Robert had patted her on the back, grinning widely. Even Great-Aunt Dolores, who I'd helped with groceries every week for the past 3 years, had nodded approvingly. All because I was adopted. All because my parents died when I was 7, and Grandma Eleanor had taken me in when no one else would. All because, in their minds, I wasn't really family, just some stray grandma had felt sorry for. But they were wrong. So incredibly, catastrophically wrong. I'd been 22 when Grandma passed 6 months ago, fresh out of college and drowning in grief. The funeral had been a blur of hollow condolences and sideways glances. Patricia had swooped in immediately, claiming authority as the eldest child, organizing everything while I sat in the back row, feeling more alone than I ever had since my parents' accident. "Don't worry about the house, dear," Patricia had said afterward, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "These things are so complicated for someone your age to understand. Let the adults handle it." I'd been too devastated to fight her then. Too lost in mourning to question why I wasn't included in the will reading, why Patricia suddenly had power of attorney, why I was being pushed further and further to the margins of the family I'd called home for 15 years. But Grandma Eleanor had been smarter than all of them. 3 days after the funeral, her longtime lawyer, Mr. Harrison, had called me privately. "Iris," he'd said, his voice careful and measured, "your grandmother left specific instructions. There's something she wanted you to have, but only when you were ready to claim it." He'd given me the address of a bank across town and a safety deposit box number. "She said you'd know when the time was right," he'd told me. "She also said to tell you that blood doesn't make family, love does." I'd carried that key for 6 months, too afraid to use it, too scared of what I might find. Until today. Until Patricia had stood in that lawyer's office with her forged documents, claiming she'd already sold Grandma's house to a developer for $2 million. The paperwork was all in order, she'd announced smugly to the assembled family. "Eleanor left everything to me, of course, and I've decided what's best for everyone. The money will be divided among the real heirs." When I'd protested, when I'd demanded to see the will, she'd laughed that cruel laugh and delivered her crushing blow about orphans not inheriting anything. That's when I'd remembered the key. Now, as I walked into the bank, my heart hammered against my ribs. The safety deposit box was small, containing just a manila envelope with my name written in Grandma's familiar handwriting. Inside were 3 documents that made my knees go weak. The first was the real will, dated just 2 months before Grandma's death, leaving everything to me. Not just the house, but her entire estate worth nearly $3 million. The second was the actual deed to the property, with my name clearly listed as the sole heir. But it was the third document that made my hands shake. A detailed report from a private investigator, documenting Patricia's gambling addiction, her massive debts, and her plan to forge my signature and steal my inheritance. Grandma had known. She'd known everything. Attached was a handwritten note. "My dearest Iris, if you're reading this, it means Patricia has shown her true colors. I'm sorry you had to see our family at their worst, but I needed you to understand what you're dealing with. The house is yours, as is everything else. But more importantly, you now know who truly loves you and who is only pretending. Choose your real family wisely. All my love, Grandma Eleanor." I sat in that sterile bank room and cried, for Grandma's wisdom, for the family that had rejected me, and for the relief flooding through my body. Then I pulled out my phone and called Mr. Harrison. An hour later, I walked back into his office where my so-called family was still celebrating. Patricia was in the middle of explaining how she planned to use her money when I cleared my throat. "Excuse me," I said quietly, and the room fell silent. Patricia turned, her face flushed with champagne and victory. "Oh, look who's back. Iris, dear, I told you this doesn't concern you anymore. The adults have handled everything." "Actually," I said, stepping forward and placing the real will on the conference table, "I think it does concern me. Quite a bit, actually." Mr. Harrison leaned forward, examining the document. His eyebrows shot up as he read. "Patricia," he said slowly. Where did you say you got the will you presented earlier? From Eleanor's papers, obviously. I was her power of attorney. No, Mr. Harrison interrupted, you weren't. Your power of attorney ended the day Eleanor died. And this, he held up the document I'd brought. This is Eleanor's actual last will and testament, properly witnessed and notarized. The one you presented was something else entirely. Patricia's face went white. That's impossible. I found it in her desk. You mean you forged it? I said, my voice growing stronger. Just like you forged my signature on the sale documents. The room erupted in chaos. Marcus jumped to his feet, demanding to know what I was talking about. Jennifer started shrieking about how this wasn't fair. Uncle Robert began blustering about family loyalty and respect for elders. But Patricia just stared at me, her mask finally slipping completely. You little bitch, she hissed. After everything we did for you. After we took you in when your parents died. Grandma took me in, I corrected. You tolerated me because you had to. And apparently, only as long as you thought there was nothing in it for me. I turned to address the whole room. For 15 years, I thought you were my family. I helped with your kids, attended every birthday party and holiday, supported you through divorces and job losses and medical scares. I loved you. I considered myself lucky to be part of this family. My voice cracked slightly, but I pushed on. But today, you all sat here and celebrated while Patricia stole from me. You clapped when she called me an orphan who doesn't deserve to inherit anything. Not one of you questioned whether what she was doing was right. Great Aunt Dolores had the grace to look ashamed. Iris, dear, we didn't know. Yes, you did. I cut her off. You knew Patricia was cutting me out completely. You knew she was selling Grandma's house without involving me. You knew, and you were fine with it because I'm not real family to any of you. I pulled out the deed and handed it to Mr. Harrison. This house belongs to me. It's been mine since Grandma died. The sale Patricia arranged is fraudulent and void. Patricia lunged forward, trying to grab the papers. You can't do this. I have debts. I need that money. That's not my problem, I said calmly, stepping back. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to steal from me. Mr. Harrison was already on his phone, calling the police. Forgery and fraud were serious crimes, especially involving this amount of money. As we waited for them to arrive, the family celebration turned into a nightmare of accusations and panic. Marcus cornered me near the window. Iris, come on. We're family. Patricia made a mistake, but we can work this out privately. The police don't need to be involved. I looked at him, this man I'd called cousin, whose children I'd babysat, whose wedding I'd helped plan. Marcus, 20 minutes ago you were applauding while your mother stole my inheritance. Where was family loyalty then? We didn't know it was yours. Because you didn't care enough to ask. None of you did. Jennifer approached next, tears streaming down her face. Please, Iris. Mom's got gambling problems. She'll go to prison if you press charges. Think about our kids. They need their grandmother. Your mother should have thought about her grandchildren before she decided to become a criminal, I replied. And frankly, Jennifer, I'm not sure they need the influence of someone who thinks stealing is acceptable. When the police arrived, Patricia tried one last desperate play. Officer, this is just a family dispute. This girl is adopted. She's not even really Eleanor's granddaughter. She's trying to steal from us. The lead detective, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, glanced between Patricia and the paperwork. Ma'am, according to these documents, the house legally belongs to Miss Iris Thompson. You forged her signature to sell property that wasn't yours. That's fraud, regardless of anyone's adoption status. As they led Patricia away in handcuffs, she turned back to me one last time. You ungrateful little witch. After everything we gave you. What did you give me, Patricia? I called after her. A place at the dinner table as long as I knew my place? Conditional love that disappeared the moment money was involved? That's not a gift, that's emotional manipulation. The rest of the family dispersed quickly after that, avoiding eye contact and muttering about lawyers and appeals. Only Great Aunt Dolores lingered. Iris, she said quietly, I want you to know. I'm ashamed. Of Patricia, yes, but also of myself. We should have stood up for you. I studied her face, looking for sincerity. Why didn't you? She sighed heavily. Because it was easier to go along with Patricia than to fight her. Because we told ourselves that since you weren't blood family, maybe you didn't have the same rights. Because we're cowards who chose convenience over conscience. At least she was honest. Thank you for saying that. Can you ever forgive us? I considered the question seriously. Dolores, forgiveness is possible. But trust? That's going to take a lot of work to rebuild. Starting with all of you examining why you were so quick to cut me out of a family I've been part of since I was 7 years old. She nodded sadly and left me alone with Mr. Harrison. Your grandmother was a remarkable woman, he said, gathering up the papers. She saw this coming from miles away. How long did she know about Patricia's gambling? About 6 months before she died. She hired the private investigator after Patricia started asking her for money and pushing to be named in the will. Eleanor was heartbroken, but not surprised. I thought about Grandma in her final months, carrying the weight of her daughter's betrayal while protecting me from the truth. She must have felt so alone. Actually, Mr. Harrison said, I don't think she did. She talked about you constantly, how proud she was of your college graduation, how you'd grown into such a kind and strong young woman. She said you were her greatest joy. Tears pricked my eyes again. I wish she'd told me about Patricia. I could have helped her deal with it. She was protecting you. She wanted you to have a chance at a real relationship with the family before you saw their true colors. She hoped she was wrong about them. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings. Patricia was charged with fraud and forgery. The attempted sale of the house was voided. I officially inherited not just the property, but Grandma's entire estate, including investments and savings I hadn't even known about. The family rallied around Patricia, hiring expensive lawyers and painting me as the villain who was destroying their mother and grandmother over money. The local gossip mill went into overdrive. Stories about the ungrateful adopted girl who sent her own aunt to prison, about how blood families should stick together no matter what. But I also discovered something unexpected. I wasn't as alone as I'd thought. Mrs. Chun from next door brought me casseroles and stayed to chat about Grandma's garden. My college roommate Maya drove up from the city every weekend to help me sort through the house. My old boss from the bookstore called to check on me and offer support. Most surprisingly, Grandma's neighbor Tom Morrison stopped by one evening with a bottle of wine and a confession. Your grandmother asked me to keep an eye on you if anything happened to her, he said. She was worried about Patricia and wanted someone outside the family looking out for you. Tom was a retired teacher, a widower who lived alone with his 2 cats. Over the next few months, he became something I'd never had, a truly chosen family member. Someone who cared about me not because of obligation or blood, but because he genuinely liked who I was. The trial was brutal. Patricia's lawyers tried to paint me as manipulative and greedy, suggesting I'd somehow coerced a dying old woman into changing her will. They brought up my adoption repeatedly, as if being orphaned at 7 somehow made me less deserving of love or inheritance. The proof was clear. Patricia was deep in debt, lied about money, and even tried to fake my signature. The real will was valid, but her fakes were sloppy. She got 3 years in prison and had to pay back what she stole. The judge was harsh because she cheated her own family and never cared. After court, Marcus snapped at me. Happy now? Mom's in prison, the family's ruined for money? I told him she broke the law. The family broke when you all defended her lies. If she had just asked for help, I would have given it. Marcus softened. What will you do now? Live in Grandma's house. Care for her garden. Build a life with people who truly love me. And us, he asked. What family? The ones who laughed when your mom called me an orphan? That's when it ended. 6 months later, Jennifer came to my door. She looked older, regretful. She said she'd started therapy and admitted she'd been jealous of me, letting Mom turn that jealousy into hate. She apologized honestly, without excuses. We talked for hours. She hugged me, saying, "You're not an orphan. You're our sister. I'm sorry it took this long to see it." As she left, I felt a shift. Not forgiveness yet, but maybe someday. Now, with Tom and Maya as my chosen family, I knew Grandma was right. Real family isn't blood. It's who stands by you. And I finally had that.